Hello everyone. So I want to talk in today's video about some troubles or some kind of difficulties that I've experienced with project panning, and I think as well they're troubles that other people who do project pan have experienced as well, from what I've sort of seen and read in the community and in YouTube videos, etc. So I want to talk about them, but then I also want to talk about some tips as well to kind of overcome those troubles. Now, if you don't know what project panning is, it's basically a challenge where you aim to hit pan in 1 or 10 or however many makeup items you own. And what that means is basically you've used the product enough that you can see the pan in which the item is encased in. So when you do a project pan, you can either set yourself a target, so you can say I want to use this foundation 10 times, or I want to use this eyeshadow until I've hit pan, or I want to completely use a lipstick up, for example. Now with my project pan, I 9 times out of 10 include makeup items that I want to completely use up. And my project pan is a rolling project pan, so it means that once I've used up an item, I replace it with something else. And I like to keep 10 items in my project pan because I feel like that's a nice, even, good amount of products to be working on. It's not too few and it's not too many. But again, that is up to you. You can choose to just include 2 items, 3 items in your project pan, or 20. A project pan is really what you want to make it. So that's kind of a brief overview as to what a project pan is, and I've been project panning for about a couple of years now, and I have noticed a couple of, I suppose, little stumbling blocks along the way. So I want to talk about 4 of those in today's video. And the first one I want to talk about is arguably the biggest sort of stumbling block that people tend to experience when they do project panning, and that is boredom. Now this is more common for project pans where you have more items, and you experience this when you just get really bored of using your project pan items day in, day out. Now, speaking from experience, when I've gotten bored of the items in my project pan, it's because they're items that take a really long time to use up. So for example, something like a concealer. I've got 2 concealers in my project pan and I think they've been in my project pan for most of the year. I'm a little bit bored of them because they're really the only concealer that I've been using. But I've also had it before where I've just gotten bored of my entire project pan, in a sense that I'm bored of using the same products day in, day out. I want to try something different. So I suppose the tips to overcome this are to include some quick, easy wins in your project pan. So include items that are really close to being used up. Also include some items that are really easy to pan as well. So for myself, a lip liner is a really easy item to pan. So that's going to be in my project pan long enough for me to get to know the product, for me to get to know whether I like it, whether I want to repurchase it, but it's not in my project pan for months and months and months on end where I think I want to wear a different lip colour. And if you do have items in your project pan that take absolutely ages to use up, so for example, if you do have a foundation or a concealer, that is the type of product that's going to take months to use up, instead of including it in your project pan to use it up in its entirety, instead set yourself a usage goal. So say, I'm going to use this foundation 20 times, and then once I've used it 20 times, I'm going to roll it out, and then I'm going to include a different foundation, and then I'm going to use that one 20 times, roll it out. So that way you're keeping it fresh, and again you're using your product enough times where you're hopefully going to see some progress, but you're not neglecting the rest of your collection. So you could do this for all of the items within your project pan. You could change them quarterly, for example. So you could have some makeup items that you use in the spring that suit the spring aesthetic, and then you can switch that up and include some brand new items in the summer and again in the autumn and winter. So you're focusing on those items for 3 months. You might even get some empties in that time, but then you're not getting bored of them because you know with the next season you're switching up the items you're focusing on. Also, if you're bored of an item because you don't like it and you feel like you're kind of forcing yourself to use it, take it out of your project pan. A project pan should be fun. Hopefully nobody is forcing you to do it, so why would you be focusing on makeup that you don't enjoy? So if you're bored of an item because you don't like it, take it out of your project pan, replace it with something that you do enjoy using. Because then you're going to want to use it on a regular basis, you're going to see some progress with it, and you're going to be excited to do your makeup every day. So the next problem that I've encountered is not seeing progress in items, and this is very true for items that take a long time to pan. So for example, those two concealers that I've mentioned, it's only been the past month or two where I've noticed some progress in those concealers. I've noticed that when I take the wand out of the tube, there doesn't seem to be as much product on the wand. So obviously a way to overcome this is to not include makeup items that take a long time to use up. If you're using a foundation, if you're using a concealer or a powder blusher or bronzer, for example, these items are notoriously difficult to use up. They take a long time to use up. So therefore it is going to take a long time to see progress in these items. So include, again, some quick wins, include some items that are going to take a short amount of time to use up. However, if you want to include those products that take a longer time to use up, there are a few ways that you can kind of track your progress on them. So some people like to weigh their items. I personally don't do that, but if you weigh your items, you can see month on month the numbers go down, so you know you've got less product left. You can also take little update videos, update photos, and hopefully you can see the products start to kind of wear away a little bit. So this is quite handy for powders. So powder blushes, powder eyeshadows, hopefully after a while you can start to kind of see a dip in the pan, you can see that progress. So I take update pictures, but I also tally the number of times that I use a product, and I do that for all of my project pan items, and that really makes sure that I am using them as often as I think I am. So before tallying them, I thought that I used my project pan items loads, and then it wasn't until I started tallying them that I thought, okay, actually the reason I'm not seeing progress in certain items is because I'm not wearing them as often as I thought. So track your usage, and then you might find that you need to maybe up your usage a little bit, and that way you can start to see some progress. Also, are you not seeing progress in your items because you're including makeup items that are very full? So for example, back to that liquid foundation, if you're using a foundation that you only used a handful of times, of course you're not going to see progress on it because it's really full. So obviously then choosing an item that doesn't have a lot left is a way to make sure that you're seeing really quick progress, you're using items up. So I personally like to mix things up. I like to have some quick wins in there, some items that I'm going to see visible progress month on month, items that are only going to take me a month or a couple of months to use up, but then I also don't mind having a few items in my project pan that are in there for the long term, that are going to take months to use up. Also, you can multitask with your products as well, and that will help you use them up that bit quicker. So for example, I think it was last year or maybe the start of this year, I had a liquid highlighter I was working on. So instead of just applying a tiny amount and putting it on my cheekbones, I mixed it in with a foundation or a concealer, and then I also mixed it in with a body product as well. So multitask with your makeup items. Use a lipstick as both a blusher and a lipstick. Use an eyebrow pencil both for your eyebrows and as an eyeliner. Can you use a sparkly eyeshadow for a highlighter? Can you use a concealer all over your face as a foundation? So try and find some other ways in which you can use your makeup items. So the next one is one that I've kind of touched on, and this next problem is all about hyper-focusing on your project pan items. And by this I mean that you use these items and then you don't really kind of focus on anything else. Now with a project pan, I suppose one of the consequences of doing it is that those items in your project pan are the makeup items you use more often than the rest of your makeup. So naturally you are just going to use these items more regularly than the rest of your collection, but it's when you become hyper-focused and I suppose a little bit obsessed about using these project pan items is when it starts to become a bit of a problem. So earlier on in my project pan journey, I did feel the need every day or most days to wear all of my project pan items. Now I've always had a 10 item project pan, so that means that every single day or most days I was wearing at least 10 makeup items on my face, and there were some days where it just felt like that was a lot of makeup. And even on days where I was like, okay, I'm going to put makeup on but I'm only going to put a couple of items on, I would end up using all of my project pan items because I felt like I should be putting them on. I felt like I was kind of failing in a way because I wasn't wearing all of them. So it's really kind of taken me a while to, I suppose, allow myself to not wear all of my project pan items most days. There are some days where I do just want to chuck a couple of bits of makeup on my face, so as long as I'm using a couple of project pan items, that is now fine by me. So there are some days where I do just put a little bit of concealer on or a little bit of blusher and a bit of lip product, and that is me done. Whereas previously I would have put on all 10 project pan items. So I suppose this one is a little bit more tricky to kind of overcome, because this one does take a little bit of time, a little bit of, you know, reassuring yourself that it is okay to just wear a couple of makeup items. You don't have to put the whole shebang on your face every day. And I guess this goes back to enjoying makeup. A project pan shouldn't be a chore. It shouldn't be something you feel compelled to do, that you have to do. You should only do a project pan because you enjoy it. You enjoy wearing those items. Don't force yourself to put on makeup that you don't want to put on or that you don't feel like putting on. So for me, as long as I've worn at least one project pan item every time I put on makeup, I'm fine with that. Yes, I know that means that my usage is going to be potentially a little bit lower, but I'm using my project pan items, so there is going to be some usage. I am going to be making some progress. And then the last problem is all about neglecting your other makeup. So I suppose this kind of follows on quite nicely from hyper-focusing on your project pan items. I've had this in the past before, where I've been so focused on using my project pan items that I've neglected the rest of my makeup collection. So if I've had a project pan where I've had base makeup, I've had some eyes and some lips, I felt it a bit unnecessary to wear makeup from the rest of my collection, because I didn't need to. I'd already had items within my project pan to use for all of my face. Now, the way to overcome this is to set yourself, I suppose, little challenges. So I do a project pan and I also do a shop my stash. So how I am trying to do my project pan now is to just include base products. So that's something like foundation, concealer, bronzer, blusher, highlighter. It'll also be like an eyeshadow primer as well. So these makeup items kind of form the basis of my makeup look, regardless of what other makeup items I'm wearing. So I suppose it's like having a neutral outfit. So having like a neutral top, neutral trousers, those are like my project pan items, whereas something like a shop my stash is adding, say, a pair of red high heels or a nice colourful handbag or a colourful scarf. Those are the accent pieces. So keeping my project pan fairly neutral, keeping it, you know, full of makeup that I can wear on a day-to-day basis, means that with my shop my stash I can be a little bit more creative. So with my shop my stash at the moment, I've got lots of autumnal colours. So I've got lots of oranges, coppers, golds. I've got some like burnt orange lipsticks as well. So the shop my stash makeup items that I choose just allows me to be a little bit more creative, to inject some colour into my makeup looks as well. And I can also switch up my shop my stashes seasonally as well. So it's November next month, I like to go a little bit more vampy, I like to play with some darker colours, so I can do that. But then my project pan items will complement that, because they are base products. They're products where it doesn't matter if I choose colourful makeup elsewhere in my collection. If you don't want to do a shop my stash, you can do other challenges, such as a week of just wearing all your red lipsticks, or a week of wearing all of your most colourful eyeshadows. So switch up your challenges. And again, you don't have to include project pan items until you've completely used them up. You can switch up the items. So again, you can switch them up seasonally. You can switch them up after you've used them 10, 20, 30 times. So that way you're rolling in new items on a fairly regular basis. So that's really helped me to not neglect the rest of my makeup by having that shop my stash. And if I can keep my project pan fairly neutral as well, that will allow me to continue to play with lots of colour. So those are some problems that I've experienced over the past couple of years at doing project pan. So please let me know, if you are a project panner yourself, what problems you have kind of run into and what solutions you found as well. I do have a project pan playlist on my channel as well, so go and check that out to see my monthly progress. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again very soon for my next one. Bye guys.